Hi everybody, Bearded Rogue here, and this is going to be the first of many quick little videos that I wanted to do about BGGCon. I recorded some much longer videos that ended up being well over 30 minutes in length, and I didn't want to mess with having to edit them or figure out if I'd left anything out, so I'm just going to do some shorter videos just to make sure that I get everything into it that I need to get in. So this first one is going to be just about BGGCon in general and how it compares to other conventions I've attended. So I've been to, at this point, Unpub, Origins, Gen Con, and several local conventions, several smaller local conventions. And I would say that BGGCon is very high on the list of conventions that you should look to attend. It's very exclusive because of the number of tickets that they sell. I know that they're going to be expanding a couple years from now, but that doesn't help for the next 2 years while they're still locked into their current contract. It feels like a large convention, but doesn't feel like a sales convention. So while it's, I think, ultimately, I think it's smaller than both Origins and Gen Con as far as the number of people there. I personally, because of how active I am on Twitter, knew more people there, or at least it felt like I did. Pretty much, it seemed like at every table I knew at least one of the people who was playing a game. Whether it was because they are an internet celebrity or I personally knew them through interactions on Twitter or at previous conventions or, what have you. So, as a fan of board games, I would say Board Game Geek Con is the best con to go to play published games. Period. Full stop. No arguments there. The other conventions that I've attended, like Unpub, is obviously the best convention to go to play unpublished games, although if you wanted to play exclusively unpublished games at BGGCon, you could do that. There's plenty of designers there who have prototypes that they want to test, even big-name designers, Rob Davio, Eric Lang, like people who have prototypes that they want to test. Kevin Wilson was testing new scenarios for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, so you could play prototypes the whole time if you wanted to, but if you really want to play published games, this is probably the best convention. There are fewer other things going on at this convention than there are Gen Con or Origins. There aren't as many separate events. There are some major ones. They have the closing ceremony on Saturday night, and they have the Battling Tops tournament on Friday night, and Spielathon and various other things do happen. Like, there are events at the convention, so if you're into events, you can do that. But if you just want to sit in a room and play games for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, this is the convention for you. I played 3 games that there is no way I would ever get to play at home, due to just the sheer length of those games. Very rarely would I be able to find time to play a game that takes longer than 2 hours at a go. And at BGGCon I played one a night. So it's definitely good for playing published games. It's fantastic for networking. You will see anybody who is anybody there. All of the industry insiders are able to get tickets pretty easily. Not more easily than anybody else, but a lot of people will be there on press passes. A lot of the publishers will be there. They do have an exhibition room, or a sales floor, let's put it that way. They had 2, one for larger publishers and then one that was a more indie room. Both of them were very good, very well managed. There was a lot more demoing than selling, a lot more demo space than sales space, which was very, very cool to me. A lot of the new Essen Hotness, this was the first opportunity you could get it in the US, which was really cool. But overall, it's not a sales convention. Like, that's not its priority. The sales floor wasn't even open on the first day of the convention. Wednesday, it wasn't even open, which was really cool because it meant that all the people who worked the sales floor, other than booth setup, they basically had that day to do whatever the hell they wanted. Which means that working that convention actually is pretty cool. And the BGG Con volunteers, who worked in the hot games room and various other places. Their shifts didn't seem to be extremely long, so it looked like even though they were volunteering, they were still getting in plenty of gaming time on their own, which is really cool to see. I'm sure it depends on the number of volunteers they get, but volunteering gets you a badge. That's pretty darn good, since badges are harder to come by. So I think volunteering for BGGCon is a very viable way to go there and still enjoy yourself. Even if you end up working on the sales floor for the whole day, you still have the entire night of gaming that's available to you. As far as where it ranks on cons, it's way above Gen Con. I would go to BGGCon a million times over before I would go to Gen Con. Gen Con is officially my least favorite convention I've been to out of all of them. I would say that it definitely ranks there. Unpub is still great, and the Unpub community is awesome. However, I got to see a lot of the Unpub community at BGGCon and play a lot of their stuff, so it was kind of like a nice end cap to the convention season, with Unpub starting early in the year and then this one being the ending of the year. I got to see a lot of games that I saw at Unpub in new states of progress after almost a year of development, so that was really neat. I'd say it ranks slightly higher for me than Unpub, just because there's more time. Unpub is not as long of a convention. Unpub is, 3 days. It's one designer day and then a weekend. This was 5 days, and 5 days is much longer than 3 days when you get into convention time, where you're not sleeping for very long and trying to cram everything you can into every 24-hour day. So that works pretty well. So I think it's a better convention than Unpub. As far as where it ranks with Origins, both of them are pretty close. Origins, you'll have less time to play games, so if your focus at a convention is to play games, then I think you're kind of stuck. I think the Origins sales floor is actually better still than the BGGCon one. However, the emphasis at BGGCon is not sales. So I think BGGCon is doing exactly what it needs to do to be the convention it wants to be. However, I think Origins, you'll find more stuff to buy. Part of that, I think, is because of the crunch time between Essen and BGGCon being the end of the convention season. The publishers are pretty much ready to wind down and start moving towards next week's next year's production schedule. So not that there weren't a lot of awesome things. I mean, like I said, a lot of the Essen games, this was the first time you could get them in the US. So while there weren't as many things to buy, especially from publishers' back catalogs, the new hotness was there. So it depends on whether you care about filling out your collection with older games, which is really, Origins is really good for, or if you're looking specifically to buy the new hotness. There are flea markets and math trades and various other things at BGGCon. I did not take part in any of them, but I imagine that they would also serve similar purposes to the ones that take place at Origins. Either way, I feel like both conventions are good. Origins has better food. There is better food in Texas than what is immediately around the hotel and convention center, but until they move, they are kind of isolated. You will Uber or taxi anywhere you want to go, or you'll need a local who's friendly enough to drive you about. The Hard 8 barbecue is fantastic. The Taco Cabana is still one of my favorite places on earth, and I can only go there in Texas, so yay. Overall, I think that's pretty much what's out there. It's a really good convention. I highly recommend it. It would completely replace Gen Con for me if Gen Con wasn't so important to the actual business side of being a designer. Like, if you're not a designer or you're not trying to network inside of the industry, then you could probably skip Gen Con. Everybody's too busy anyway. BGGCon is fantastic for networking. I met so many people who I only knew as Twitter handles, and got to see so many of my friends from Twitter there that it's kind of mind-blowing. Either way, BGGCon is really good, guys. Like, it lives up to the hype. And I hate putting videos like this out there because it's going to make it more difficult for me to get there next year. But hopefully it'll kind of sort itself out as to what size it eventually wants to be, and the impending move to a larger space in a couple of years will allow everybody who wants to be there to be there. Anyway, that's it for my BGGCon summary. Expect more videos on individual games and prototyping and my designs and various other things that happened to come after this one. Anyway, Bearded Rogue, signing out.